Please stand for the flag. Ready to begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll move on to the roll call. Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. President. Division 6, Audrey Miller.
Here.
Division 5, Robert Paris.
Here.
Division 3, Frank Donato.
Here.
Division 2, Keith Dias.
Here.
Division 1, Drew Mercy.
Here.
Division 7, Gary Van Dam.
Here.
Division 4, George Lane.
Here.
General Manager Knutson.
Here.
General Counsel Tilden Kim.
Here.
And Holly Hughes present.
Thank you. That'll bring us down to our voluntary public roll call. Yeah, we always like to hear who may be listening in the meeting, and if you're listening in, we do appreciate hearing from you.
John Ukestead.
Hey, John, welcome. Glad you're with us.
Vincent Dino, Palmdale Water District.
Hey, glad to hear from you.
Earl Schwartz, Kennedy Jenks.
Welcome.
Ben Stewart, Roseman Community Service District.
Welcome. Okay, thank you. That'll move us on to public comments. Anybody would like to address the board if the item is not elsewhere on the agenda, now's the time to do so. Okay, we'll move to item, not hearing anyone, we'll move to item 6A1, adoption of an agenda. And motion would be in order for that.
Mr. President, I'll move on item 6A1. Adoption of the
We have a
agenda.
motion from Director Miller. Do we have a second?
Mr. President, it's Rob. I'll second that motion.
Director Paris, we have a second. There's no further comments or questions. Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Paris.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes.
Drew Mercy.
Yes.
Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, sir. Ollie, I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing some of the speaker, but I'm not hearing you.
So the way we have this temporary
Okay.
audio system, and everybody in the room needs to speak loud because it won't be transmitted through the speakers. We're only hearing people on Zoom come through the speakers.
Okay.
I'll speak.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 7, Board Order 7A1, consent calendar. We have one item. It's the minutes of our February 25th meeting. Hopefully you all had a chance to review those, and if there's no additional questions or comments, motion would be in order.
I'll approve 7A1.
Director Van Dam?
I'll second.
Second by Director Mercy. Okay. Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Paris.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes.
Drew Mercy.
Yes.
Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you. That'll bring us on to new business. And we move to item 8A1, and that's regarding letters that we're sending to our customers or any taxpayers that we're aware of. And our manager did a very nice letter. I have another letter, a follow-up. It covers a lot of the same thing, but it's just a little different. And we're looking for the board support to send that letter out to our customers. The one letter from our manager has already been sent out. And I think it's part of the agenda, and I think everyone's had a chance to look at it, or if they haven't, they can look at it now.
I'll approve 8A1.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion.
I have discussion.
Yes, Yeah,
Um,
Dr. Melton.
I respect your letter, President Lane. I think we need to stick to the facts. And I would say to strike the statement, potentially this could cost Antelope Valley East Kern taxpayers over 900 million plus, just about double that. I think everything else in the letter is pertinent, but I would like to see us have facts, and that's an assumption to me. That's my discussion.
You know, most taxpayers in the Allen, they've never heard of AVAC. And our tax bill mentions nothing of AVAC, it mentions special, water. And we try to be transparent, and there's no way is that gonna be detrimental to the taxpayer who wants to be informed. And so I think that's very important. And this is it's not $1 million, project that we're doing. It's significant. It's probably the largest one that's ever been done in the Antelope, Valley. And so we're not making a factual statement. We're making something, approximately what we think. And I think most taxpayers, they're well enough to know that may not be exactly the number. It'll probably be much more than that. But I think that's important for our taxpayers to be aware and informed. And right now we've sent letters to our water users, but our water users, they're just part of the equation. Most people that are paying the tax bill have never received AVAC water and never will receive AVAC, water. And so to make those people aware as much as we can, and we're somewhat limited right now in time what we can do, but I think that's important. So I would stand by that statement. If we wanted to make it 900 million, oh, no, I think that's what we're saying, 900 million, but people need to be aware of it. Yeah, we need to be very transparent, and this is one step towards doing it. And Matt's letter is a good letter. This adds a little bit more, and so I would hope the board would be responsible to support this, because if we don't let this be known, someday when this bill hits the taxpayers, if it were to pass, there's going to be, and I've seen it one time before, there's going to be a lot of uproar and finger pointing at AVAC. I've seen things that happen were a lot less significant than this. So I want to be on the side of caution, not the side of saying we don't want the taxpayer to be aware of what the significance may be. Because, like I say, if it was a much smaller number, this would not be necessary. But under Proposition 13 was passed in 1978 by overwhelmingly that any bond issue is supposed to get the support of the vote of the taxpayers. And then, unfortunately, 1960 in the Burns-Porter Act of the state of California for the aqueduct, they wrote so many things in there that they could do assessments for an indefinite period. And that's been 65 years ago. It's a loophole as far as many people are concerned. And right now there's a couple of lawsuits, regarding this within the state of California we haven't been informed with, but let's let people make their own decision, and I hope the board would support it, because if they don't, I think eventually they're going to be held accountable.
How much, I got a question, Director Donato, how much we spent so far on the studies and research? Isn't it like over 10 million already?
So good evening, Director Donato, this is Matt. So AVAC has contributed about a little over $13 million since 2018. And that's based on AVAC's 3.95% share of the Delta Conveyance Project. So that's the amount that we've contributed to date.
So another 11 million would make it about 24 million, $25 million, basically, if we go, okay. So that's about 25% of the way there already. So that's close, pretty close.
Okay, thank you. If there's any other comments you'd like to hear, if not,
George?
Director Ferris.
Director Ferris.
Yeah, I agree with Audrey completely. I don't think at this stage, we have a clue what it's going to cost. And what we're being asked to right now is contribute our share to the continuing planning so that in 2 years, we will have the ability to know what our taxpayers are going to be burdened with, if anything. Probably will be, but we don't know yet. We don't know how much federal funding there's going to be. We don't know how much state funding there's going to be. We don't actually know the cost of the project yet. And it's premature to get people scared about something that we don't have all the facts yet. And I know you're passionate about this, and I appreciate that. But for this information to go out by the entire board at this time is not accurate. Let's wait till we have the facts. We also know that if this project goes forward and in 2 years we decide not to participate, that we will be refunded the funds that will be paying out for the study of this project. I know it's a lot of money, George. I think to protect our citizens for future water needs, we have to wait till we have all the information. And I think that's all we're asking for right now.
Rob, you're a week or so ahead of yourself. All this is trying to do is notify the public of the importance, and we're having a public hearing. And no matter what we do, we can only get a fraction of the people that are taxpayers that we're going to be aware of this. So it appears that maybe, to me, it appears maybe scared that too many people may show up and oppose it, or people may have a right to yes or no on it. But all this is doing nothing to do with what you're talking about. It's just trying to get people to come up for this hearing next week.
Actually, George, can I be heard?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. It has everything to do with what I'm talking about. You don't know what the tax implications are going to be yet. Weeks ago, where the whole room was filled up, right?
Well, it wasn't full. We had people from Lancaster and maybe people from the Union.
Well, you had people from the city of Lancaster, the city of Palmdale,
Okay, I'll respect everybody's opinions, and, I disagree in a major way. I don't think you're close, but anyway, if there's nothing further, we'd ask for a roll call. Oh, Drew?
I would just want to add, I do agree, since we're not voting on whatever the final cost is at this time, and also where your letter says the state is immediately asking for 11.86 million. Again, for transparency, should we include that money is fully refundable if we choose not to participate?
Well, it's refundable if the project goes forward. And we don't know that. If you went to the bank, you wouldn't get a loan for that. So that's like going to Las Vegas rolling the dice. So, but if you made that clear that it's refundable if the project goes forward, and
if we choose not to go forward with it,
if the state doesn't go forward with it.
Mm-hmm.
But Matt did allude to that, but I'm not sure if most people would understand.
Yeah, I can just add some clarification here. So, Director Mercy is correct that if AVAC chooses to continue funding the next 2 years and contribute $11.86 million, and after the 2 years, if the project goes forward and gets bonded by DWR to construct, and at that time AVAC chooses not to participate in the project, we would get a full refund. If for some reason the project does not go forward, whether it's lack of participation or it's blocked somehow, then we would not get the refund.
Oh.
So there's no guarantee of refund.
People made the suggestions that it's better to spend this money on banking, better to spend it maybe on buying, water rights or other projects may be important to the agency. But anyway, I just think everybody needs to be accountable for what their vote is. This will come back eventually, because people aren't going to stand for paying up to $2 billion. And there's estimates right now what it's going to cost, and it's increased considerably. In fact, looked at the website, and it's increased significantly from I think it's 2016, 2018. It's went up several billion, and it'll probably go up several billion more every time it's finally established. And we're spending money like $5 million, the money we spent for executive offices and so much for, management. And, right now, don't know how much is being wasted. And AVAC, if we spend a few $1,000s, our finance committee and the board reviews things. We've spent 13 million and we're gonna spend another 11 million, hopefully not, another 11 million. And we haven't got a clue. We've never done an accounting, how it's being spent. And I'm pretty dang sure, the little I've looked at it, a lot of that is not necessary. And we're just approving it in carte blanche without any accounting. We don't do anything like that. We never have, but we're relying upon sender money and whatever the state, we take their word for it, and it's not good. But anyway, if anybody else has anything new, otherwise, we'll ask for the roll call.
Yeah, President Lane, I have a comment or a question. Could we get a comparison to compare if we did try to purchase local Antelope Valley groundwater from production right holders?
Well,
Let's see where we're at, because right now it just seems like we're gonna maybe sign up for something that we don't know for sure where we're gonna be. And if we bought that water,
yeah,
we
100%,
know where we're gonna be with it.
100%.
If the aqueduct ever did go down, we've got that guaranteed, right? We've got subsidence with the aqueduct right now.
Very, very valid, very valid, very valid.
Something to probably consider.
Very, very important.
And
It's something that should be studied.
just to clarify, I just don't like that one statement in your letter, because I don't know that it's fact-bound. I know it's gonna cost money, but my objection is we don't know the numbers yet. And I would just say to strike that and still send your letter. That's what I'm talking about.
Amanda, we do have an estimate. I'm not sure how current it is, but we do have an estimate. Is that correct?
That's correct. So can I make a suggestion to maybe solve Director Miller's concern? Rather than say in that sentence, potentially this could cost Antelope Valley East Kern Water Agents or East Kern taxpayers over $900 million.
Maybe just a little louder, please.
I suggest changing that sentence to something to the effect that based on the information today provided by DWR, AVAC's contribution towards the project would be $790 million. And maybe we can even elaborate on that if, over the next 2 years, we may learn more about other funding opportunities or the project costs may change. Some type of caveat, so it's based on information we know today.
Oh, great.
That
I
makes
got a
sense.
question. Matt. So you're saying that you have figures that it would be more in the $700 million figure?
Yeah, if you remember when we had a presentation from DWR and DCA staff during the cost benefit analysis, the current estimate for the project is $20 billion. So if you use that $20 billion and apply AVAC's a share of 3.95%, that comes out to $790 million.
How much?
790 million. But again, I think we need to, it's just a suggestion, but in the letter, we need to make.
I think it's a good suggestion. Matt, I think, President George, I think that's a good analysis that Matt has just given us. That number has been actually presented to the public. I think maybe if you would consider putting that number in the letter, that would be more realistic at this time.
That's acceptable. That's acceptable.
Yeah, and we have to caveat it.
We all know, or we should know, it's gonna be like the bullet. It's gonna be like the bullet train or any other project. It's gonna be significantly higher than that, and it'll probably be much more than $1 billion. And I've read some information right now where it's estimated $28 billion, and that was from recently. Have you haven't seen that information?
I have not. I think the current information is a range. There's actually a number lower than the 20 billion. But that 20 billion is what was presented to the AVAC board.
Yeah, but there's information out there I've read is 28 billion. What would our percentage be of 28 billion? Do you have a calculator you can? That's okay.
No, I
That's
just
a
figured
big
it.
number, zeros.
George,
I'd like to make another comment, what Director Van Dam said. I think the agency should aggressively go after the stipulated judgment water in the valley, because that is for sure. And if there is ever a catastrophe, we can't get water from the aqueduct. If we have more groundwater rights, the more water we'll be able to present to the different water purveyors. So I think there's two parts to that. That sounds good.
No, very, very good comment. Okay.
George?
If,
excuse me, Mr. President.
yeah.
I would move to amend the motion that we adopt the language that Matt talked about with the based upon current projections. It could be up to 790 million. And the other caveat was?
Over the next 2 years, there may be additional funding sources that could change AVAC's contribution.
And that we put in that information. And also that we add, if we do not participate in this program, it's possible that we will have no imported water supply for the Antelope Valley at some point.
You talking about that for the letter?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I wouldn't agree to that.
Why? That's the facts. That's what we were told right here by.
It's a fact, but that aqueduct, I mean, you're looking at hypothetical, talking about, the delta on the pumps. That aqueduct could break or fail at any location.
But no, I agree with that.
That's what we need to work on our local.
I don't disagree with that either, but I think the citizens should know that the decision we're making is not just the cost of this, but potentially in.
We're trying to do a factual letter, Rob.
That is factual, George. That says factual in your letter.
And,
well, that's my amendment, Mr. President.
But it is. Yeah, we're trying to do a factual letter. The taxpayers are aware of the significance of this, and you're trying to make a case that we need this so bad, because if the aqueduct broke, we wouldn't have any water.
Well, true. Yeah, it is true.
And you could write your own letter right there and send it.
Well, I didn't have that opportunity, but
You
I'm trying to amend your letter so that it's accurate and something that we can send out and that we can all agree on.
Okay. The Rob's amendment, is there any second to that? I don't.
Can you
Okay.
clarify?
Sure.
Okay. Dies for lack of a second, unless we hear a second.
He's re-clarifying.
No, Audrey's asked that I clarify what we would put in. The essence of what I would put in would be change the 900 to 790 million. That it could be up to that much, and that there may be other we will know in 2 years if there's other funding sources consistent with what
we're trying to do an informational letter for hearing next week. You're gonna. I can't believe it.
George,
Yes.
is that question presented to the public?
The public has, definitely has a right to comment on that, talk about this.
This John Yuka said, I stick by George and the letter that you drafted up. We do have water. Mr. Parrish should know that. If there is a break in the aqueduct, or we spend this money, we break in the aqueduct anywhere this side of Sacramento to the Quartz Hill treatment plant, we're going to have to go to the ground anyway. We have farmers in here that have a protection right that we can go ahead and, in case of emergency, we can buy water from them. I can see what Mr. Parrish wants to do. And first, I want to clarify something. Rob, you went ahead and sacked the deck at your last meeting, or the meeting before last. You had your Lancaster people in here and a few of your Palmdale people, like Mrs. McLaren, okay? Let's get it out to the public so the public can know what is happening. I know what you're doing, Rob. And I'm definitely against it. I'm all in full support of Mr. Lane. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
John.
thank you for the comments. Is there any other comments in the public?
Yeah, I got a comment. I believe we had a
Dr. Van
motion.
Dam?
I believe we had a motion on the floor prior to Rob making a motion. One.
He's got an amendment, maybe a motion, and there's a motion for an amendment in a second. And so I guess it would be a roll call vote regarding the amendment.
So two, I'd like to look at all options, including our, production right from the farmers and not just
But
believe that this is.
So right now, we go back to this letter, is it okay to send with the corrections that Matt, we talked about the $790 million versus the, $900 million. And, that's the motion, but if Robin's motion, was to, pass, it'd be completely different.
Right. But I had a first motion prior to that, so I'm looking for a second for my motion.
That was,
We just got one motion.
That was already seconded by Frank.
We can do it, but not till this motion is taken care of.
yeah, and then I just made a motion to amend your motion.
Excuse me.
I was just explaining to Gary what we just did.
Yeah, we got the motion on the floor already.
What's the correct protocol? Do we have to vote on the first motion?
We vote on the motion to amend,
Yeah.
and then if that passes, then we vote on the motion
Okay,
as amended. If not, then we'll go right
yeah,
back.
vote on the motion to amend, and
Yeah.
if that passes, if that passes, okay, if it doesn't, much better, but anyway. we'll go from there.
What we did, it's what we did in
Okay.
farmers parliamentary procedure, George.
Madam Secretary, this is the motion to amend.
Correct. The amendment, that was a motion by Rob, seconded by Audrey. Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Rob Harris,
Yes,
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Oh, Frank, you voting on the motion to amend, yes?
No, well, I don't know. What is the motion we're doing right now?
Well, Rob made a motion to amend, and again, he wanted to put in, you'd have to restate that.
Well,
but
yeah, that's what I'm
is there
saying. What's, I don't know what all the language, because there was like 3 conversations going on at the same time. So it was.
I know. But it basically be, if the aqueduct broke, we wouldn't have water, and putting a lot of caveats in there.
well, no,
His was an amendment.
George, can I explain it? It wasn't a lot of caveats. It wasn't a lot. It was just saying that based upon current information, there is a possibility if we do not participate in the Delta Conveyance Project, the Antelope Valley will have no imported water supply.
That's not correct, Rob.
Well, that's what we were told at the dais by the,
80,000 acre feet of production rights, and the more than that, if there's an emergency, you think if there's an emergency, we can,
Oh,
we needed to aqueduct.
I said imported water rights.
Of imported water.
Yeah.
But
That's all. That's what we were told from the dais
nobody's gonna go.
3 weeks ago.
We have more water than we can use.
Well, I know you think that, but we don't know what's gonna happen 20 or 30 years, and if our,
You want the taxpayers to pay now for somebody's great grandkids?
well, I think that's what
That's what you're saying.
that's what the taxpayers did in 1958 when they voted on this, is we're paying for what they voted on right now, and
They got to use it immediately too.
we're fortunate that we are, that they did vote on it,
They
right?
got to use it immediately. Okay, Frank, your vote was yes or no on that amendment?
I'm gonna vote no. There's too much going on. I just thought it'd be big. I mean, it's like 2 different letters should go out. One should be one, and one should be the other. So I'm gonna vote no on the amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
No.
George Lane.
No, amendment, passed, and so that letter, Matt, I guess you would make those, changes, but not under my signature.
You want to come under my signature? You want me to sign it on behalf of the agency?
I couldn't,
Do you want me to sign it on behalf of the agency?
that would, yeah, however the board, whatever the board would think.
Okay.
I have a question. Gary, what happened to Gary's? He added something too about, purchasing local groundwater rights. Was that something different?
Say that again, Frank, please.
You also wanted to, infuse groundwater rights in that letter too, but that has nothing to do with that, right?
No. I
Okay,
just wanted us,
that's a different, okay.
Point of procedure, do we now vote on the letter?
Yeah, Mr.
The
President.
amended letter, or?
Yeah, I think we vote on the motion as amended at this point. Yeah.
So we don't need a motion, do we, with the amendment?
Well, we now because the original motion was amended, if I remember my parliamentary procedure well, and we can ask Tilden, we now vote on the motion as amended.
Okay, we had a vote on that.
Well, we voted on the amendment, and now that we have the motion as amended,
Okay,
normally you would.
okay, thank you.
Oh, as,
Yeah, so now you would vote on
the motion as amended.
or the letter as.
amended, yeah.
So, is that correct, we vote on the motion as it was amended?
So
No,
the
amendment?
motion to amend was passed, so now would be
Okay,
the motion
so,
to
I
issue
think
the
we're
letter.
halfway clear on that, but, Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris.
Yes.
Frank Donato,
No,
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
no.
George Lane.
No. Okay, motion carried. Yeah, we're making a big mistake in trying to encumber taxpayers for generations to come, and I think at some point, when the public knows what happens, this board will be cleared very fast, right? The people will not put up with that.
George, if you're going to be politicking, which you tell me not to, the only thing I would say to add to that is if we make decisions where this valley runs out of water, that's when this board will be cleared. And that's what we have to be aware of. And at this point, I don't know for sure how I'm going to vote on the Delta Conveyance Project, but I certainly want to see what the final estimates are, where the funding sources are going to come from, what the projections of water are, and we don't know that yet. So I understand you're passionate about it. Well,
You gonna make a bet?
I don't make bets in a public meeting. I don't think that's appropriate.
Okay. I know how you're gonna vote, so that sounds good. Okay, we've done that, item. And we'll move on to, next item, 8A2, and that'll go to the general manager.
All right. Thank you, President Lane. Good evening. So on page 17 of your agenda packet is a draft letter, and this letter is to support Assembly Bill 259 being introduced by Assemblyman Rubio. And on the screen, you can see some bullets there. So highlights what this Assembly Bill does. It is related to the Brown Act, and Assembly Bill 259 removes the current January 1st, 2026 deadline or sunset date of Assembly Bill 2449. And if you remember recently, Attorney Kim, I believe it was, or Markman, gave a presentation on remote meeting compliance under the Brown Act and also under AB 2449. So 2449 was passed in 2022, and it amended the Brown Act to allow remote participation in public meetings under specific conditions. And that came out of the COVID pandemic. And so it allows board members to participate in meetings if they get a last minute illness or travel restrictions, emergencies, etc. And if you remember, there were some specific limitations on participating in meetings under Assembly Bill 2449. You can only use it so many times a year, and there's certain criteria. So all this new Assembly Bill does is removes the January 1st, 2026 sunset for AB 2449 and makes it more.
Okay, there's no further comments or questions. Do we have a motion?
Mr. President, I'll move on A2.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
Mr. President, I'll second that motion.
Okay, Director Miller and Director Paris. Madam Secretary, if we could have a roll call?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes,
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Moving on to 8D3 and no, go back to you, Matt.
All right, this is another, this is a Senate bill. Previous one was Assembly bill. This Senate bill 469 has to do with the recently approved Advanced Clean Fleet initiative by the state of California and the CARB outfit. Director Mercy also passed this one on and thought it'd be good to present to the board. So on page 20 is in your board packet is the draft letter of support. Staff is recommending that we submit this, and what this Senate bill does is under the Advanced Clean Fleet mandates that was recently passed, it requires over the next 10 years or so, the agency has to switch of all of our heavy equipment, heavy duty equipment, like our service trucks, over to zero emission vehicles. So most likely electric or hopefully someday hydrogen or you name it, something with zero emissions. But there's been some pushback from CSDA and local agencies like AVAC that it's going to be difficult to meet these mandates by that time frame because there's not a lot of equipment available to purchase. It's very costly. And the fact that agencies like ourselves have to have equipment readily available in the event of an emergency, you know, earthquake, major power outage, you name it. So what this Senate bill does, it gives some exemptions for agencies like AVAC for our critical fleet infrastructure or vehicles to not have to comply with this so that we can respond to emergencies and leaks in our water system or maintenance on our pump stations, etc. So like I said, we recommend submitting this as a letter of support.
Looks like that would be beneficial to AVAC, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Is there any other comments or questions?
Yes. To Matt, now when we trade in this equipment, is that part of that AQMD program where they pay 80%?
Yeah, Director Paris mentioned that to me the other day, that
Okay.
Air Quality Management District does have a program of grant money that when we have equipment that is not meeting the latest emission requirements, we can apply for a grant and get a credit for trading that or upgrading that equipment.
Right.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add to that. I think for sure we should support the letter for the Senate bill, but concurrently that's a really good suggestion. I did talk to Matt about concurrently we should be working on complying with what it eventually will be. So even if it gets pushed back some, by the time it comes, we've complied and we can use the grants from the Air Quality Control Board to do so.
Right. Haven't we done some of that already? I thought AVAC weren't we on that, John? Some of that AQMD, that Tier 4?
Well, our emergency generators are all Tier 4.
Okay.
I think the point is there's not the equipment out there yet.
Right, right.
And we don't know how fast that equipment, replacement equipment, right, John?
But Rob,
would be
yeah,
up there.
I think Rob has a good point to start now, making that transition, you know, is for what we can. But, okay, thank you.
Good point. Okay. Is there any further comments or questions? Madam Secretary, if we get a roll call?
We do a
I don't
motion.
think we did it wrong.
I'll move on eight.
Oh,
Eight,
Motion by Dr. Miller.
I'll second that
Second,
motion.
Dr. Perry.
Just wanted to
Thank
say.
you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, Drew brought it up. Let Drew
Who
second.
wants to take credit for it?
I'll second.
Dr. Miller and
I apologize.
Director Mercy. Okay, there's no further questions or comments, Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris.
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes,
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried. Yeah, thank you. We'll move on to item number D, Finance Committee. And Director Donato is chairman of that committee, and we'll turn it over to Director Donato.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. We met last Thursday, and we'll start with item 8B1, consideration of possible action to accept and file the check register list for the period of February 13th through February 26th. Let's see, and our GM Matt will give us an overview.
All right, thank you, Director Donato. So beginning on page 23 of your board packet is our checklist. We went through this in detail with the Finance Committee last week. It all hit the highlights. So we don't have any payments to DWR for this period. We'll see that in the next check run. Item number 5 is a payment to Boron CSD. That is a pass-through cost of about $3,300 for the month of January. And this is to wheel water through their system to supply a portion of Edwards Air Force Base. Item number 18 is a progress payment to APCO, just over $47,000. This is a payment associated with our SCADA upgrade project. And engineering manager Livesay gave an update on that project at the last meeting. So that project is progressing well. Next page, item 23 is a payment to Miracle Construction. This is for the removal of the spent coagulant at our Port Sale water treatment plant. The various lagoons that we have, drying beds. Every year we go in there and clean that material out and haul it off site. So that's a payment of $66,000 to do that work. Item 25 is a payment to state water contractors regarding some water quality monitoring within the state water project. It's part of our board approved membership list. That's $19,500. At the committee meeting, President Lane requested some historical cost on that, and we looked back, and the last 3 years have been at that same amount, right around $19,500. Prior to that, it was in the $15,000 range, and then prior to going back like 7-8 years, it was about $17,000. So I bring that up because it's been pretty consistent over the last 10 years. And everything else is pretty routine, but staff is here to answer any questions you have on any of those items.
got a question.
Yeah.
On that boron pipeline,
Yeah,
have we always been, so that provides water to Edwards Air Force Base?
yeah, to the
Rocket site.
rocket site, which is a separate site. It's off-site of Edwards,
Oh.
but still operated by Edwards. It's out near Boron Community Service District, and our pipeline runs along Highway 58. We have a turnout there, and we run water through their system and then pick it back up before it enters the rocket site.
Oh, okay.
So we Boron charges us a flat fee to wheel the water through.
Oh,
the
okay.
system. Yeah, and we get reimbursed from Edwards for that.
Thank you.
Yep. And that's all I have unless you have any questions.
Motion to approve, this is Keith.
Okay,
This is I'll second it.
we have a motion and second by Director Dice, second by Director Donato. In the high desert, this includes the high desert water bank, is that correct?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I should have mentioned that. On page 26, there's a few
Okay.
payments associated with
Okay, thank you.
High Water Bank.
Okay, if there's no further questions or comments, we have a motion and a second. Is it Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that brings us to 8B2. This is a consideration and possible action to approve the purchase orders payable to 3 vendors for valve replacements projects in the Mojave Tank Farm in not to exceed $365,533.80 budget, and operations manager, Mr. John Bozigan, will give us an overview on that.
Thank you, Director Donato. Good evening. Okay, so on the screen you have the 4 Mojave tanks. Those are 8 million gallon tanks. They provide water to the North Feeder, Edwards Air Force Base, and boron and U.S. borax, etc. Each tank has 2 valves, an inlet and an outlet. The blue valve is water going into the tank, the blue line. Red is going out of the tank. Those valves are 50 years old, and not surprising, they don't seal anymore. So what happens is you can't isolate a tank. All 4 tanks just kind of float together, which in and of itself isn't a bad thing when you're serving groundwater because there's no real THM formation potential there. But we are going to start using the Roseman treatment plant once the West Feeder gets fixed, and running treated surface water to those tanks. Our maintenance department will put the valves in. We'll do all the labor. Once that's done, we'll fill the tanks back up. We'll go to the other 3 and 4, do the exact same thing. And the project in and of itself was budgeted at $500,000. We at first thought we were going to have a contractor do it, but we decided if we do it ourselves, other than the line stops, which that's specialized work, that we could save a lot of money. So the 3 expenditures are going to be 1 for the valves. The valves themselves we get from R&B Automation. They're special Abtec valves, which we use everywhere. That's our standard valve now. The second cost is to copple for the line stops. This is all on your staff report. That's, the line stops are $200,000, $209,000 to do that work. And then so there's some ancillary equipment, flex couplings, bolt nut kits, etc. So the total price of the job with us doing the labor is $365,533.80, and we hope to do this hopefully this summer. The valves are probably about an 8-week lead time to get. Now I'll be happy to answer any questions. I kind of sped through it, but we've talked about it before, so hopefully everybody is familiar.
Well, I had a question.
Yeah.
Line stop is a check valve?
No, they weld the saddle on the pipe with a flange, and then they insert this device that cores through the pipe and installs this expandable line stop. And then when you're done with the work, and it goes through they put a valve on the thing. Then when you're done with the work, they remove it, close the valve, put a blind flange. It stays forever, but the line stop is out. A line stop is a temporary way to block a pipeline.
Would we be better off renting those line stops? Do we need 4 or 2?
Oh, you can't. Yeah, you can't rent them. There's special equipment that installs them, and this is a 30-inch pipeline.
Right.
Yeah, it'd be very expensive, and we really don't have that kind of expertise. It's
Right.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do with the line stops once they're...
effectively you're renting it. Yeah, you don't own it.
Right.
Yeah, you're renting their service and their equipment.
Oh.
Yeah.
When you put the valve in, would we be able, if we had to put another line stop in, is it easily accessible to do that?
Yeah, because they've already put the welded flange and the valve and the blank flange. So if 30 years from now, they'd have to come back and do it again. That part of the work is already done.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long does those valves last for?
These lasted 50 years, but typically, if you can get 30 years out of a valve, you're doing pretty well. Yeah. All I got.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? John?
Okay. I'll move on board order AP2.
I'll second.
We have a motion, Victor Donato, a second from Victor Mercy. There's no further questions or comments. We get a roll call, Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, one more quick one. This is the second PO over $25,000. This is the MOS screen at the East Side Treatment Plant. It was installed in 2015. We do annual maintenance on it. It's never been removed. So we called the company that built it, IWS, remove it. There's submerged parts that we haven't been able to look at and tell us what it's going to take on a T&M basis. They replaced the bearings, the flights, everything. It's brand new basically now. They did it on time and materials, and the price was $31,093, which is about $19,000 under the approved budget. And so this work has already been completed. We're just asking the board to approve sending out the payment to them.
You think, is there any other questions, John?
Why do you budget these things so high?
No. Hey, today you never know. I wish I had a crystal ball.
Right. We better do several of these through the years.
Yeah.
Must be.
Just call.
Yes.
We gotta do it.
100%.
Are those stainless steel, John?
100% stainless steel. Yep. Chains, bearings, everything.
Okay, a motion and a second would be in order?
Okay, I'll move on board order 8B3, that we approve the $31,093.
Second, this is Keith.
Second from Victor Dias. There's no further questions or comments? Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried. Yeah, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John. Good job.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay, that brings us to ladies and water bank report right there. Yeah, that's Frank Donato also.
Okay, we had an overview with this as well at the High Desert Water Bank Committee, and 8C1 monthly update for the High Desert Water Bank with Justin.
Justin?
Justin will give us an overview.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Director Donato. Good evening,
Sure.
President Lane, members of the board. Fairly brief monthly update report this month. As you know, no banking is currently occurring at the High Desert Water Bank. We are waiting on word from Metropolitan with the current allocation if they want to resume. So we're kind of just holding off on there. Total balances are shown on the screen that haven't changed since the end of last year. Recoverable balance for Metropolitan Water District about 45,000 acre feet, and for AVEC's benefit about 6,300 acre feet. So look forward to getting started. Our guys are working hard to make sure that the project is ready to receive water as soon as we get that notice from Metropolitan Water District. Moving into some recent activity on the project, Stantec, our team of engineers, recently delivered to us a 60% complete level design package for the on-site electrical. That's under review by AVEC and technical review by Kennedy Jenks. They also completed a Tahone Ranch modeling memo that we've talked about a few times in the past, which is using the model to look at what impacts the project may have to Tahone's two wells that are on site. That's in the hands of Tahone Ranch right now. They're reviewing, and we're working to schedule a meeting with them to discuss the results and any concerns that they may have. We've also delivered the substation site plan for the SCE substation that will be on site at the High Desert Water Bank. So SCE is reviewing that currently. We haven't heard any comments back from that, but we may get some soon. Stantec also, with the help of Kennedy Jenks, put together a workshop for our operations and maintenance folks to look at the well equipping and recovery package that's being designed currently, just to make sure we get their feedback on the layout of the well sites, what equipment is going to be installed there, all of those things that our guys know how our West Side Water Bank and East Side Water Bank well sites are set up. So we wanted to use their knowledge and expertise to put together really good well sites here for the High Desert Water Bank that will be easy for them to operate and maintain in the future. Stantec's team went out on the site and staked the locations of well sites HD11 and HD20. Those are the two that were added to the contract via change order to drilling package number 3. And you'll see later in the presentation, those are one of those is underway with the pilot hole drilling already. And then Montgomery and Associates is actively out in the field with the contractor, observing all the activities associated with the well drilling that's going on out there. So our team is doing a good job in keeping the project going.
Can I ask a question? Director Donato. On SCE, is there any updates on if they're moving up the time on getting the power put into our High Desert Water Bank?
No updates on advancing the timeline, but they're not falling behind. So that's good news. And we actually have a couple slides at the end here on what the schedule for the project looks like. And it's looking like currently Edison is not going to be the last thing completed. So we're in good shape as far as getting power to the site right now as it relates to the remaining construction packages out there.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So budget, the only thing that's changed on this table since the last several updates is this cell here, really, the approved contracts. I just updated that to include the change order for those 2 wells that we just talked about that we added to the drilling package number 3. So that's gone up slightly. Of course, the payouts to date also go up after we make progress payments. But essentially, bottom line, we've committed about 50% of the total project budget to date. We've got 4 construction packages left to complete. So we think we're doing pretty good budget-wise on what we're doing so far. As far as active contracts, again, not too much change here, but I always like to point out how we're tracking versus the budgets that have been approved. And so looking at the Nicholas construction project, we know that's already completed. We still have a few invoices trickling in from our construction management, engineering teams on those for some of the work to finalize their efforts on paperwork type stuff. But we're looking pretty good. We're about 83% or so completed on both of those versus 100% complete on construction. So tracking pretty good under budget on those. And then as far as the well drilling package number 3 construction, about 75% complete. And then we've paid out about 50% of the engineering support contracts on those. So again, those look like they're tracking under budget for those projects. The well drilling package 3 construction or field support, this is Montgomery and Associates field work. We probably will have a small amendment associated with adding those extra 2 wells, but we still need to bring that back to the High Desert Water Bank Committee and then ultimately board in probably the next month or so. As far as capital program account activity, all is going good there. We've got the Metropolitan's deposited about $104 million to the project so far. We've got, let's go for $4 million in that bank account right now. And then as far as HD11, that's the first of the 2 wells that were added via change order. The pilot hole, actually, I just heard that it reached total depth. So they should be going through pretty soon. We'll be working on the well design for that one. And then Bakersfield Well and Pump will continue the actual construction development of it. HD20, they did install the conductor casing. They'll move the rig over to HD20 when they're completed with HD11 is the plan right now. But that's all going really good. And the extra time that we gave them, they may not need all of that. So they should complete that ahead of schedule, it looks like. Keeping the last couple of slides here, just wanted to daylight some information here for the board I kind of alluded to earlier, but as far as schedule goes, the current project schedule is showing completion now in April of 2028, which is behind, what our original schedule was planned to be. Director Donato, you had asked about Southern California Edison. They're currently scheduled to finish about June 2027, right where my cursor's at. So you can see that our on-site power construction, as well as our groundwater treatment facility construction and the well equipping and recovery package are all scheduled to finish after SCE at this point in time. The main contributing factors to those scheduled delays are a few things that Metropolitan's kind of done here. They applied for a $82 million grant from the Bureau of Reclamation, and they asked us at that time to hold off on releasing any new construction packages because if we proceeded with those, they wouldn't be eligible to use that grant funding. So we've been holding off on at least drilling package number 4 at this point until they get their grant stuff all completed. I think they've signed the agreement. There's some environmental work that needs to be done associated with that. So that's kind of held us off a little bit. And then kind of the bigger driver is their decision on treatment. We've talked about that several times at previous meetings. Metropolitan needs to make a decision on how they're going to implement arsenic treatment out there, and then they threw nitrate in the mix as well. And so they're looking at options of how to handle the treatment of both of those things. And we really can't move too much forward without those decisions being made. We've communicated that verbally with Metropolitan staff multiple times over the last several months. And as we discussed with the committee, our next steps is we'd like to, we're going to be submitting a written letter of documentation, documenting those delays just for the record. If anybody looks back, why didn't this project get completed in the time frame that AVEC said it would, we can always point back to this correspondence. And Metropolitan's well aware of this. One of their suggestions is that we develop some alternative schedules that make some assumptions on when key decisions may be made, utilizing the grant funding versus not, what the treatment decision may or may not end up being, and they'll provide some input on that for us as well. But our team, Kennedy Jenks, is working on developing some alternative schedules that we can include with our correspondence. And there'll be some milestones shown on there that, for the record, if they don't meet those milestones, then we can see, where the even further delays may come from. But in addition to that, we're looking at brainstorming some alternative methods to try to get us back on track and get this project completed out sooner rather than later. So we're looking at options like maybe potentially pre-procuring long lead items. Maybe we can buy some of the things that are going to take quite a long time to receive. Maybe we get ahead of that. Then we would own those, provide them to the contractor for installation. That may help, or potentially looking at some alternative bidding or delivery methods. So AVEC staff and our consulting team are kind of looking at all options at this point in time, but I definitely didn't want this to be a shock when somebody asks, why aren't we finished with this yet? And so I wanted to bring that to the board's attention. We discussed this in depth with the High Desert Water Bank Committee as well. That wraps up the report for this month, but happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions or comments?
So I had a question. They keep changing these quality, conditions on us. When's the last time they changed quality? On the
so the changes, there have not been any changes to water quality standards that have impacted this project.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of the short answer to your question. Yeah, the arsenic we knew of. There were some plans to treat that. Nitrate at the High Desert Water Bank site is below the MCL, but it's above the ambient level within the aqueduct, and that's throwing a little bit of a wrinkle in for Metropolitan as far as putting that water into the aqueduct.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Justin.
All right.
It seems like a lot of times, once this meeting's over, I see Justin in the Little League field about 10 minutes later.
Yeah.
That's where I'm heading after this. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Justin. Good job.
Okay, that concludes High Desert, Water Bank, so we'll move on to item number 9, General Manager's Report. Matt, can you hit just a little bit about that letter from the city of Lancaster also, please?
The public records request? Yeah, okay, I'll get to that. And we'll first start with Peter. He's going to go through some state water project and water supply updates.
Good evening, President Lane, board members. It's been a while since we did a update on different points in the water system and how it's affecting our allocation. So we're going to do that tonight. So this is a look at precipitation in the Northern Sierras. We're at 114% of average, which is good. That feeds directly into Oroville, which is where our water right originates with the State Water Project. So that's good news. Next slide, please. The way we arrived at that above average is a little unusual, a little lopsided. So we had a very wet November, almost nearly double what the average is. And then we had a pretty average December and then a bone dry January. And then we doubled again in February, the average. So, and then we'll see what happens with March. Right now we're starting off low, but there are a couple storms on the horizon. Maybe we'll hit average there. All right, next, please. So this is the San Joaquin 5-station index. This is for Central Sierras. And the reason why this is important, we've talked about this before, this directly feeds the San Joaquin River, which is where our pumps are for the State Water Project and where most of our restrictions occur on the State Water Project. It is a little below average right now. So we're at 68% of average. Hopefully with these new storms coming in, we'll get closer to average there. Next slide. And you can see the trend is very similar to what happened in the Northern Sierras. We just didn't get that doubling effect in November and February that we did in the Northern Sierras. All right, next one, please. All right, so just a little update on Lake Oroville. So good news there. We're 125% of historical average. And right now it's being managed for flood flows. It could be higher than this based on the flows that are available to come into it, but they drop it down a little below its maximum in order to accommodate the storms that roll in. They've gotten pretty good with analyzing atmospheric rivers and being able to manage that level at a way that's safe and also maximizes storage. All right, next please. All right, San Luis Reservoir. So this is where our State Water Project carryover water and Table A reside after it gets pumped out of the Delta. And so good news there, 102% of average, and we're about 84% from being full. We just got off a call today with GWR and there's low spill risk. So we'll monitor it as these storms roll through, but it doesn't look like there's a high chance that we'll spill or lose water in San Luis. All right. And so I've been talking about those storms that will be rolling through. This is a good look at those atmospheric rivers that'll be hitting. We'll get some even down here in the Antelope Valley, which will be nice. So we do anticipate 2 of those storms hitting heavily into the Central and Northern Sierras, and that'll be good for our water year and hopefully lead to another bump in the allocation. All right. So that concludes kind of the setup for where we've arrived at our 35% allocation and where we're positioned now moving into March. So I'll just pause and see if there's any questions on any of the slides that I went through.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments?
Just a quick question. How much of our Table A is in San Luis right now?
I would imagine we're probably something like 20% of our Table A is in San Luis, and the rest is anticipated to be delivered to San Luis over the rest of the water year.
Dr. Burris?
Yeah, just one question. Since our allocation went up, and I know you guys have a good answer for this, but why aren't we taking our 2024 carryover if there's any chance at all of spilling any of them?
All right, that's a very good question. So we have been actively taking our 2024 carryover. So that's the water that's been being delivered to all of the treatment plants first in order to reduce our spill risk. So we try to strategically take that first.
So do we still have 26,000 acre feet there, or is it less than that?
It's a fair question. We have less than that. This is a look at total water supplies for the year. So starting out in January, what we would have, that 26,000 acre feet has dipped down, but also so would our service area demands if we were to calculate those out at the same time. So we've kind of fed into our demands with that state water project carryover. This slide is just to give us a high level look at where we might end up at the end of the year based on the allocation. And I think, Matt, you wanted me to go through this?
Yeah, I think it'd be good to hit the highlights.
Okay. So we do know that beginning of the year, we had 26,000 acre feet of carryover available from state water project supplies from 2024. And at that 35% allocation, we have 51,000 acre feet available to us. We also have an exchange that we have an obligation to take back by 2029. There's some guardrails on it such that the Rosedale to Rosedale Rio Bravo, they paid $300 an acre foot for it. On the back end, the return part that we're talking about now, we had to return a third of that back, 5,333 acre feet, and we would pay them $325 an acre foot for that water. And that's, if I'm missing any piece.
Yeah, I think that's the key terms.
Those are the key terms. Just looks like this would be an opportunity to actually use the water, and it's at a price point that's relatively accurate for the current water year.
So I had a question on, are you finished?
With the top part, so feel free, yeah.
On Orville, when
Yes.
we open those gates to balance that water off, how much water runs into the ocean?
A lot. So it just depends on whether there's storm flows or not. You can get into over 100,000 CFS flowing through Sacramento River when that storm flows are really
There's not a shortage of water. There's a shortage of capturing the water.
correct.
Which the Delta Commands might help.
All right. So demands, we know what our demands are likely to be. So we want to keep 25,000 acre feet in storage in San Luis for 2026 in case it's a dry year. So we pull that, set that aside. We anticipate our service area demands will be roughly 40,000 acre feet. We have 2 exchanges that we need to make good on and return to other agencies, Crestline Lake Arrowhead Water Agency and Little Rock Creek Irrigation District for a total of 2,200 acre feet. So that puts our total demands for us on our state water project supplies at just over 67,000 acre feet. So what we see is we'll have roughly 15,000 acre feet of surplus supply in this year. And so just moving forward into the next few meetings, we'll want to talk with the directors about what our plan is with that surplus supply. We could increase banking. We currently have 112,000 banked in our variety of projects around the Antelope Valley. We could exchange for local groundwater. We currently have 28,000 acre feet of Antelope Valley groundwater rights. Or we could transfer it to another agency for revenue. So those are the 3 main options available to us with that surplus supply. We just wanted to tee that up for future discussion at a future meeting. And Matt, if you have anything you want to add.
No, and that 15,000 acre feet of surplus that Peter talked about, that's based on the 35% allocation. So as you mentioned, we could see a slight increase in allocation based on the recent storms. So goes up another 10%. We'd be looking at 30,000 acre feet of surplus. So we have time to work through what we want to do with that surplus, but we just wanted to get the board starting to think about it. Good job, Peter. Thank you. And then I have just a couple slides. This slide is a little closer to home, what's going on here within the valley for AVAC. Top left is our 4 treatment facilities and what we're currently flowing. Port Sale is flowing at 20 million gallons per day. A little higher for this time of year than what we've seen. Roseman Water Treatment Plant is currently offline. Eastside Water Treatment Plant is flowing at 1.5 million gallons per day. And then we're receiving about 300,000 gallons per day from Palmdale to serve Acton. Down at the bottom left, that chart shows what we're recovering from our various water banking facilities. And we're currently only pumping water from our Westside Water Bank. And about 1.9 million gallons per day is going to the north to satisfy those demands out towards Edwards and Boron, Mojave, etc. And then 1.1 million gallons per day is flowing to the south to serve LA County Waterworks. We're not recovering anything from Eastside Water Bank, the Bench Ranch wells, or any of our ag wells in Kern County. The top right shows what we're currently banking. We may see this change depending on what our plan is over the next few months, but currently we're only banking at the Eastside Water Bank and Upper Amargosa Creek. Pretty minimal amount at each of those. Some highlights at the bottom right, you can see some notes there. Justin hit on number 2 regarding recharge for Metropolitan at High Desert Water Bank. We're waiting on that decision. We're not delivering any water to Palmdale Water District currently at Lake Palmdale. And then this week they started inspection of the West Feeder. If you remember several months ago, we awarded that contract and they finally got out in the field doing the field work. And then in the coming months, we'll get the detailed report on what condition that pipeline is in. So we look forward to that. Some upcoming meetings. We have our special workshop on the 18th at 5:30 p.m. here in the boardroom and on Zoom. AV Edge Business Summit Conference at the AV Fair is on Thursday the 20th. Begins at 7:30 a.m. We have the Watermaster Advisory Committee on the 19th at 10 a.m. That's at Quartzsale Water District or on Zoom. We have our regular meeting on the 25th of March. At that meeting, we did invite Wells Fargo to come in person and give a market update.
Good. Be good to hear from them.
Yeah. And then we have our Watermaster meeting on the 26th. And just a reminder that the new committee assignments go into effect April 1st. And I think you all should have received that. So at the beginning of the GM report, President Lane requested an update on a request from the city of Lancaster. You want me to hit on that?
Please.
Okay. So on Friday, AVAC received a Public Records Act request from the city of Lancaster, the city attorney, requesting, there were several bullets requesting information regarding each of the AVAC directors that goes back to, I think it was 2015, requesting residency and property ownership from each of the directors. So Secretary Hughes provided that to our attorney, and yesterday Attorney Markman did respond to that request. So not with any detailed information about the directors, but kind of responded to the request and requested some additional information before we could respond.
They want to go back to what, 2015 was that?
Yeah, it was. I think it was January of 2015 was the request.
I had a question. Has that been done before?
I'm not aware of one. Yeah, but
And basically, our act doesn't require a director to be a landowner, just be a registered voter in their district. Is that correct?
yeah, you should have all received an email from Attorney Markman that kind of lays out the requirements within the AVAC Act versus the request was based on the California Water Code. And I don't know, Attorney Kim can jump in here.
If you want me to supplement, sure.
Yeah.
So the Public Records Act request was based upon Water Code, section 34,700, that requires those California water districts that are formed under that enabling act and requires property ownership to be a requirement for an office holder. So we did the research, your general counsel did the research, and he concluded that AVEC is not a California water district. And since AVEC is formed under its own enabling act under the appendix of the California Water Code, appendix section 9851. So section 9851 provides for a 7-member board of directors, and with one director being a resident of each division of the agency. So that residency requirement is the only specific requirement for being a director.
I'm here today to hopefully spell my Native American totem.
So the residency requirement is the only requirement for being the director in that division, along with some other requirements. For example, if there's some constraint on criminal activity or otherwise. But relevant to this analysis, the Public Records Act request, we required property ownership records. But since AVEC is formed under a different enabling act and doesn't have that property ownership requirement, Attorney Markman responded by noting that difference, and also, property ownership records may be found in 700 forms that are online, and so those are publicly available. So that's where we left it off.
Yeah. Thank you.
I hope there's a valid reason for it. It would be nice to know. Otherwise, it would appear it could be a misuse of public, funds from Lancaster sending their attorney to ask for this request. It would be nice to know they haven't made that known. But anyway, the taxpayers are paying for it. Any further comments or questions?
Yeah, let me comment on that. I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that the reason for that is based upon what our attorneys presented about residency requirements for our directors. And I think there's some out there that believe Frank doesn't have a residence here now, so that he can't lawfully vote. I would guess that that's the reason, but I haven't been told that.
Okay, thank you for the comments.
You're welcome.
Okay. Is there any other comments or questions?
That's all I have to report under the GM report, unless you have any questions.
Okay, that moving right along, is that finish your report?
Yes.
Okay, move on to directors' reports, and I think we do have a couple of directors today.
Topics that were brought up were one that we had an FBI presentation on cyber threats. So they're really wanting to make sure that our water association, there's hacking that goes on. And it's not only, it's little hackers, and it's Russia, Iran, and China. They said those words, okay? They present when they made their presentation. So I just want to make sure we're protecting our treatment plant and all our records as well, that we have good safety for.
And a lot of that will be addressed, or it is being addressed in the SCADA upgrade project to have all the latest and greatest security measures.
Right, great, thank you.
Yep.
And then if you go to acwa.com, you can look up and see all their key federal water issues. What we brought up mainly was, and Drew will share our visits with our legislators, but we got out of this that there may be money in the Inflation Reduction Act for finishing projects that you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So hopefully we'll be able to finish a couple of our projects by requesting some federal money to finish the projects. And they're also, Aqua is a lobbyist for the water agencies as well. So they're working to pass, working and urging Congress to pass the reauthorization of the Farm Bill. And I think Gary would probably have more knowledge of what that means to the farmers and all the different things within the Farm Bill. There's too much to tell you everything that we ran across, and Drew will finish with our other visits.
Okay, thank you. And Drew, Dr. Mercy?
Yep, I think Director Miller gave a great report on those. I'd just touch on a couple of meetings we had with Congressman George Whiteside's office and Congressman Vince Fong's office. As you may know, Mr. Whiteside's now represents all of our LA County portion. Vince Fong represents most of the Kern County portion of AVEC, with the exception of California City. So we had Ms. Whiteside's office is still getting set up, but we had a great meeting with one of his staff members, kind of just educating them about who we are, what our role is in the water system. With Mr. Fong's office, we had I got to talk with his legislative aide for water, who had some great insight, not only on the funding that might be available, but also that he is particularly interested in water storage issues. In addition to the East Kern area, he covers a chunk of Kern County on up to Fresno. So a lot of farming and agriculture interests in his district. And so with them, we talked about what we're working on. We touched on SNP 2. And we did touch on the Delta Conveyance Project, just in the sense that as individuals, we think the federal government, with President Trump's interest in California water, to look at infrastructure projects. And I think the conversations we had were pretty good, that there's room for discussion there. I will throw in, we got to hear President Trump.
We were at the White House.
We happened to be lucky to be on the tour of the White House. That was one of the first White House tours since it reopened, and he popped around the corner to say hi to our tour group, but we were pretty far in the back, so we could hear him but couldn't see him.
Great. Thank you.
And what I really liked about this conference as well is on the second day in the afternoon, we actually got to go to the Capitol building, sit in one of their meeting rooms, and 10 different legislators came to us. They were very busy, very, very busy, but they did a round robin and gave us some information on what's happening with sites and different things, that, especially knowing that there may be some federal help on water issues in California, especially. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. There's nothing further. We'll move on to the next item, attorney's report. Is there any?
Nothing further to report.
Okay, and we do have reason for a closed session.
We do. It should be fairly short.
Excuse me?
It should be short.
Okay.
Mr. President. Mr. President. Mr.
Okay,
President.
so a motion would be in order.
Mr. President. Oh, I just had a comment for request for future agenda items. This just kind of came up, so I just want to kick it over to you. With those, the two bills we came up, perhaps we could consider creating a legislative affairs committee to review state, federal, county
Good point.
policies that could affect us. So,
Okay, that's Matt, can we follow up on that? And
Yeah, you and I will work together and see who you want on that committee.
Okay.
Go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. It seemed like we used to have one years ago. Maybe not, but
Yeah, we may have. I mean, I think recently we've been kind of combining it with public information,
Yeah.
but I think that the request of Director Miller is appropriate. Yeah.
okay, thank you. Then right now we're looking going into closed session.
Yeah.
So,
Mr. President, I'll move to adjourn to closed session.
we have a motion by Director Miller.
Yes, and I'll second that
by Director
motion.
Parrish. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break and,
Yes.
oh, we have a roll call vote.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, thank you. It's close to 5 minutes has been,
Good job, Rob.